Next, we have Christina Wedekull, and she has also had a similar experience as Paul. She has worked in a time when there was a crisis and in helping to efforts in reconstructing a country and school system. Christina.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to share some of my experiences that I got in Aceh, Indonesia, after the tsunami that struck in December 2004. I was a Swedish representative that was sent out to coordinate the Swedish efforts there. And I really spent a lot of time on the ground in Aceh, but also in Jakarta, where some of the more strategic meetings were taking place. The focus will be on donor coordination in general, and I think it's quite a bit of this could be applied in Haiti and then also in the education sector. So what happened then in Indonesia? Well, we don't need to go into details to that. That was one of a horrific disaster that struck. So what happened afterwards? Well, a lot of money was flowing in, and a lot of donors. There's an unconfirmed figure that there were more than 600 donors in Aceh when I came. This slide shows how it was. Everybody was setting up their offices everywhere. And of course, there are lots of donors coming in, everyone trying to make the best, trying to help people. Some are established, some are not established. And some are doing more short-term, some are doing more long-term. And of course, coordination was never going to be easy with so many different development partners. So strategic multi-stakeholder coordination between the government, the civil society, communities, and the private sector was easy. But that's, of course, easier said than done. And in the beginning, I can tell you, there was a lot of what we call cherry picking. You know, you pick easy projects to show off, to say, we're doing something. But in the long run, maybe it wasn't that good. So managing that great flow of money that came into the country, what should be done? Well, the government put itself in the driver's seat. They created a Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Agency, BRR, to provide leadership for the recovery. And its leader was a minister that was appointed directly by the president. And the BRR had the power to actually coordinate all the efforts. So the BRR was I would call a one-stop hands-on agency that was based in Aceh, which is, by the way, it's 4 hours by plane from the capital. And Aceh was, had actually been cut off, so to say, from the world for about 30 years because of an internal conflict. So actually was not much knowledge from the outside world about Aceh when the tsunami struck. So the BRR, what they did, they were tracking donor projects. They introduced anti-corruption measures and also different kind of approval processes of projects and tried to prioritize what should we actually do and in what order. And in the long run, they were also trying to build up a monitoring and evaluation systems for the different programs that were done. Something that was interesting about the BRR was that from the very beginning it was said that this is not going to be an agency that's going to stay forever. There was a sunset clause. So after 5 years they said, okay, after 5 years the BRR has done its job, it's going to close down. And this was also a thing to strengthen the local capacity in the long run. And I will also talk a lot about Sweden. We channel our money through a multi-donor trust fund, like many other people did, or other countries did. But before going into that, I would just share some of my personal reflections of donor coordination in Aceh. I think it's extremely important to involve all relevant actors, may it be governments or civil society. We all have a different role and a very important role to play. And this is in regards to thinking, planning, and acting. Nobody can be left out. And if it hasn't already been taking place in Haiti, really, there must be a fundamental change in mentality by all sectors. And I'm saying civil society, government, and the donors. In the long run, there is no substitute for national leadership. and even though the international community takes on maybe the stick in the beginning. Discipline, coordination, collaboration, and transparent dialogue among all involved in the reconstruction should be a guiding star. So it's easy to forget that coordination is not only among donors, but it's also around local governments, NGOs, international NGO, and the communities themselves. And this takes time. It really takes time. And coordination is not about picking up the phone, but it's actually try to move to a common goal. I would also say that local ownership is crucial. People-centered governance should be the core. And I think that in donor coordination, we should always encourage local actors to be involved. Empower the people. I feel that this could be like, what do you call it? Words that it doesn't have a meaning, but really empower the people. Nothing can be achieved if not people are involved. I would like also to say that human rights and democracy, responsible, the ability to freely exchange information is critical and building blocks in this regard. Decentralize, decentralize, decentralize as much as possible. There are always different kinds of networks, local networks that can be used and are usually already in place. And also, when it comes to coordination and also when it comes to of how to move things forward, when there is such a big disaster that has struck, there is a social change taking place. There is a lot of movements. And in that regard, try to make the best out of that and use that. And of course, avoid flag waving. I think that we should, in order to have good donor coordination, we should avoid trying to add unnecessary structures, authorities, and programs. And we can't afford raising national flags or whatever flags we want to have and push our own agenda. Instead, we should try to get things done. And we need to really combine our resources efficiently and effectively. And of course, this can look good on paper that we're doing it, but it's all about if we do it in reality. Information, that is key. That is about to the affected government, or to the government, to the affected people, other donors. And I think it's very important to inform about plans, delays, for example. There were a lot of delays in Aceh, but if actually the people got to know that why there were delays, then people would understand. If people don't get informed what's going on, why this donor is doing this and that donor is doing that, then there is a lot of, not confusion, but people get really irritated. So I think we need to, we need to push information, and it's never enough. And I also would say that it's very important to start early in the beginning, to have townhouse meetings, message boards, etc., so people know what's going on. And this is part of donor coordination, but it's also part of getting things done. Flexibility. Circumstances are constantly changing, and so innovation and flexibility is essential. In Aceh, we started the reconstruction after the tsunami, for example, and there was lots of money flowing in, but also we had a conflict that had plagued Aceh for about 30 years. And we actually had to change a lot of the money that was coming in, looking at it, saying that we couldn't actually reach our goals if we didn't help the people that were affected by the conflict. So this is just an example of saying that you need flexibility in the financing. And then also the work in sector tables or clusters. I don't know how it is in Haiti, but I can't emphasize it enough. If there are like an education or a cluster sector table in education, that is extremely important that weekly meetings are taking place, that everybody's informed what's going on, what are the plans for different donors by the government, etc. just very short, we had a Multidonor trust fund in Aceh. We were 15 donors that got together, and we had more than $700 million to spend. And of course, we were 15 donors, so we had to trust each other, you know, and the system, because 15 different donors have 15 different systems. We always impose on others what they should do, but we all have our own systems. That was, I would say, for those of you who are familiar with it, it's Paris Declaration. We should actually try to have one system, and I think we put it in practice in Aceh. And here we built on the government's strategic plans of what we were supposed to do. I will also say that it will take time to set up funds or mechanisms, and it should not be underestimated. Disbursements, if you're actually setting up a program, needs to be constant. If not, there is a slowdown, and you won't be able to reach the goals. Also here, I would like to emphasize, I've done it before, that local government and communities needs to be engaged. We had on the steering committee, we actually invited the local government to be ex officio on the board to make decisions. And I also think one of the lessons learned of working in the Multidonor Fund was that we were 15 different donors, the UNDP, the World Bank, bilaterals, etc., and in NGOs, that we always bring something different to the table. And it's got a lot of add-ons. Also, what we did, and I don't know if it's possible in Haiti, but we had to put things in practice. We had a joint office. All the different donors were actually working under the same roof, side by side. May it be if you're a Swedish or World Bank employee or Asian Development Bank. And I think that was very good to try to understand actually what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve. So that was, it was a vibrant place, I can tell you that. So there's always a race between speed and quality, may it be in Aceh, Pakistan, or Haiti. And I think that all us as actors share that responsibility to reach the goal to rebuild, build back better. Long-term commitment and planning must be coupled with fast response. And so all agencies must provide information about their programs and experiences and share it with others. And I think that for donor coordination to work, it all depends on the willingness, on the people involved and their engagement. Fancy papers are fine, saying what we should do and how we should do it, but the proof is always in the pudding. What actually happens, and if we can actually rebuild a society that is better before, and making use of the opportunity. So that would be my closing line, that we all have a responsibility to take as many steps as possible to reach the common goal to rebuild a better place, in this case for Haiti. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wedekull, thank you very much for your comments. You have focused on your experience dealing with coordinating donors, coordinating the impact of materials and resources that are coming to bear in an area where there's been a crisis. Paul talked about the actual implementation. How does the superintendent actually take the resources that are being coordinated and get them to make a difference the first day as well as every single day that follows?